Okay, I'd like to call to order the December 21st, 2022 meeting of the Harwich Conservation Commission. This meeting will be held in a hybrid fashion. Public may attend the meeting in person, access the meeting on channel 18, or you can log in remotely to participate. For the remote login information, you can find the agenda on the town website, and login information is there. So we're going to start tonight with a request for determination of applicability for 89 Shore Road, map 5, parcel P1-4, for a deck expansion.
Hi, I was here a couple weeks ago, and they asked me to redo the framing of the deck as to not have it interfere with the 50-foot buffer zone. If we did that, they also required us to put approximately 8 bushes of bayberry and/or beach plum or something like that. And we've changed the plan to show that we took the foot off. And I talked with Amy, and she's gonna recommend what we need to plant. That's all I have.
So, instead of a 53 square foot addition to the deck, they're now only asking to do 13 square feet. It's right at that 50-foot line, and they reduced it by 1 foot in width by 40 foot in length, so reduced by 40 feet. Again, it's only 13 feet now. It's really to square off the corners of the deck. It's not getting any closer to the resource. And I did suggest 2 clusters of a few plants on each of the property lines on the east and west. That it's immediately adjacent, like at the top of the bank, immediately adjacent to the lawn. I did not have a chance to sketch that for you, but I think it's fairly minor that with your permission, I would sketch that. And I would recommend approval. And the appropriate plants are what George had said: bayberry, beach plum, pasture rose, pretty hardy, drought-tolerant species that are medium to large shrubs and not ground covers or small shrubs. So with those conditions, I would recommend approval.
Okay, do we have comments from the commission, starting with Stan?
No comment.
Mark?
No remarks, thank you.
No comment.
Jim? Alan?
No comment.
Do we have a motion?
Sorry, I meant to mention I'm recommending a -3 approval.
I'll make a motion that we issue a -3 motion for this determination applicability for 89 Shore Road, map 5, parcel P1-4, for the deck expansion.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
Discussion?
My question is, do we also need to approve a variance for the 13 square feet that are beyond the, that are within the 50-foot line?
You can. It's really, it's right on the line. So if it's unclear and you want to, for the record, put it in the motion that you're granting a variance, you can do so. But it's right on the line. It's hard to
Right,
tell.
Okay, then I would like to amend the motion by also approving a variance that would be necessary for the project to proceed as shown to us this evening.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
George, do you want us to send that in the mail to you, or do you want to call to pick it up? We will. We may not have it ready till early next week. We'll call you, okay?
You got it, thank you.
Yeah.
So, the next item, I guess we should take the North Road separately here, the 2 items.
We can announce them together.
So, the first is a request for a change in plan for 52 North Road, map 19, parcel S1, RDA 2019-7 for a septic system installation. And the second is a request for an amended order of conditions, 7 North Road, map 19, parcel S2, SE 32, 2373, for also septic system installation.
Hi, good evening. Stephanie Sequin with Robert and Wilcox, and I'm representing Tom Smith, who's the owner of the two properties at 47 and 52 North Road. And Tom is attending remotely. At the last meeting 2 weeks ago, you asked for a revised plan with the, showing the specifications for the force main that is proposed to go from the cottage, the smaller building at 47, across the road to shared leaching or shared septic system at 52. So I submitted a revised plan. Hopefully, you're looking at plans with a revised date, December 14th, 2022. And on the second page, I modified the detail showing the sewage ejector and the force main. On the original plan, it wasn't quite clear where this was going to discharge to. The detail almost looked like it was, discharging to the plumbing of the cottage. So I tried to illustrate that it is, the sewage ejector is being installed within a concrete enclosure adjacent to the building, going underground, under the road, to the basement of the existing building at number 52 on the other side of the road. And from there, it will tie into the plumbing inside the building at number 52. It has come to my attention that a portion of this work has already been completed. I think it was about a year ago that the, one of the concerns you also had at the last meeting was whether the DPW had approved the installation of the force main within the road layout, or whether they would approve the installation of the force main within the road layout. So as part of that gathering of documentation that Mr. Smith received from the Highway Department, it came out that the Highway Department did in fact approve the installation of the force main and also an electric service underground, and that work has been done. Simply installing the section of the force main that goes under the pavement of North Road. They dug down and just mold underneath the pavement, as opposed to, they didn't want to cut the pavement and trench across it, so they mold underneath it. So based on that, the information that I was given from the contractor who did the work, it's a 2-inch Schedule 80 force main that is sleeved in a 3-inch Schedule 80 PVC pipe to protect it from damage, and it is at a depth of 3 feet below the surface. So I think that is the only thing that I have to add. I did notice after I revised the plan, Mr. Colson, I think, had asked that the existing cesspools be removed completely, and I forgot to add that to the plan, but I certainly can
Okay.
before any orders are issued.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, and for that clarification. So it was a little bit different than what was relayed in an email. So you said 2-inch, Schedule 80,
It's actually Schedule 80, not Schedule 40.
and within a 3-inch.
Yes.
Schedule 80,
Yep,
3 feet below grade.
yep,
And you got that per the installer.
yes.
Okay. All right, so, as we talked about last time, it's something that, and we did get it's called a road opening, permit, even though they didn't open the road, they went under the road from DPW, and that's when it became known that the work had already been done too. And I think at the meeting last time. So it did get approval from DPW. We should have been notified or given a minor approval for that work too, given the proximity. I'm still a little unclear, but where it's capped, is it immediately on the outside the pavement where the pipes stop, or was there excavation at all or molding on 47 or 52?
I don't know the answer to that, and maybe Tom can.
Yeah.
I think it just went, far enough beyond the pavement so
Okay.
that they could get to it without having to
Understood.
disturb the pavement.
Okay.
Yes, and Amy,
We did also see that coming out of 52, there is a PVC pipe coming out of the above grade, out of the foundation. And I wasn't sure if that was associated with this, because it is out of the foundation, but it's above grade, or if it was a sump pump or something else. And maybe Mr. Smith could answer that question?
yes, hi, Amy. Can you hear me?
Mr. Smith, are you available?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Looks like he's on my headphones, otherwise.
Hang on one second, we're trying to get you.
Okay. Testing.
Hang on, Tom, we're trying.
Try it now.
Try it now, Tom?
Hello.
Hi, thank you.
Okay, you got me?
Yep,
Okay, yeah, Amy, I'm getting an echo in the background on this side, so it makes it a little difficult, but, yes, the stuff that went under the road was capped either side. The PVC above grade was not connected to anything. That was a sump pump that put water from the basement out into the, outside of the yard.
okay. That was my thought. Okay, so we'll do the change in plan for 52 North first. And Tom, if you're also using a phone, that might also be why you have an echo. There is somebody on here as also a caller and not just on the computer. So if you have two running, you might be getting an echo.
Yeah, I'm not on the phone. I'm on my laptop, but I don't know who the caller is, to be honest with you.
Well,
Could
that
be,
one-
could be Jimmy Mitchell, could be Chris, I'm not sure. Chris
Be
Alphen.
somebody else entirely at our meeting. So first for the change in plan for 52 North Road. Again, you did a little bit of work under the road without our approval. We really should have known about it. But regardless of that, when reviewing this project, I went back to, 2018 in my mind of when we were first seeing this project, in which case for both properties, there was a cesspool on 52 and 47. And had the Conservation Commission at the time and myself been shown this plan to do to pump the effluent from 47, which is right on the water, pump it to a Title V system on 52, would have been an improvement over those conditions it had been, provided it met Title V requirements. I think the Conservation Commission would have approved that, and I would have recommended approval at that time. So really, for conservation to prove that there's gonna be a cumulative adverse impact as a result of one additional bedroom's worth, essentially, of effluent being discharged across the street from a wetland, I think would be a very hard thing to prove. And it results, what you're proposing to do is an improvement over what was previously there. I think a lot of the questions involving the construction, a lot of that is gonna fall to the Board of Health. The Board of Health has already approved the tight tank and the 2-bedroom septic. So my recommendation is that you approve the change in plan for 52 North and approve the amendment at 47 North.
Okay. Comments from the commissioners. Wayne?
I'm kind of confused. What is this, it says 12/21/22, Chase and Merchant said they did not put a pipe under the road?
No, that was my mistake.
Oh.
We looked at our records
Yeah.
and see who had pulled permits on this property, and the most recent that we had was Chase and Merchant. Chase and Merchant did not do the work. It was I can't remember his name right now, but Mr. Smith gave me the name this afternoon. I did not have a chance to speak with him on the phone. He's a contractor out of Marston's Mills.
Okay,
So my apologies. I thought originally it had been Chase and Merchant,
all right.
but it was not.
That's all I have.
Just to clarify for you, Amy, and help you in this situation, is it's Eric Stevens, and Eric Stevens, I think, is what he goes by.
Thank you.
Alan?
Almost set.
Jim?
Okay, the only question I have is there an engineered plan for the pipe going under the road, certified by an engineer?
You have a plan stamped by me.
Yep.
You-
Yep.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
I'm fine with Amy's recommendation.
No remarks.
So, there's one discrepancy here, which is you put Schedule 40, they're saying Schedule 80. I think we should just record that.
Yeah, and Stephanie's gonna revise anyways.
Right,
so.
because you'll come back in 2 weeks to draft the amended order, or will that happen tonight?
No.
Okay, so before the next meeting.
Yeah, if you can, by Wednesday or Thursday of next week. There's a couple minor revisions, the 40 to the 80, and then, what was
Noting
it?
the cesspools being removed,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
And so my other question is, when will this be inspected? Will there be an inspection of the actual underground work?
That has already been done? The
Has been done,
piece under the road?
yes, by the town. Would that be part of Health Department approval?
Health would do the septic inspection. They're involved, they have, but,
So the
know more than I do,
health
probably.
department would need to see everything before it's backfilled. No one will see what's under the road, because that was just mold under, but the health department will see the connection from the building to the existing pipe under the road and from there into the building. There will be plumbing inspections, electrical inspections.
Okay, thank you, that's my only question. Any other questions or comments? If not, then we have a motion.
2 separate ones, if you don't mind, one for each property.
Okay. I'll move that we approve the change in plan for 52 North Road, map 19, parcel S1, RDA 2019-7,
And that would be a -3.
with a -3 determination.
Both of them are -3. I apologize, -2 and 3 is technically in Riverfront, which is a resource.
Okay,
I'm
well,
sorry.
I will amend my motion to add a -2 and a -3 declaration.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, discussion, apologize for coming in late, but was there any discussion prior on issuing a fine for work without a permit?
No.
Discuss that.
If it was in fact immediately under the road and it was mold, it's very minor,
Yeah.
and there's already hardscape, so it's up to the commission. Technically, there was activity.
Right, activity without a permit. So, we should at least discuss it.
Well, let's finish with this motion and the other one, and then we can talk about it.
Come back to that, okay, fine.
So, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. Thank you. So, would you like to put forward a motion on?
Sure,
what you said?
sure. I'll move that we approve the amended order of conditions for 47 North Road, map 19, parcel S2, SE 32-2373.
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Okay, so, you wanted to discuss.
My feeling was there was activity at this site, again, without a permit, and so I would favor the issuance of a fine. I guess my question is whether it should be a fine for both properties, or if it's really a single act. I'm not sure if you have any recommendations on this, Amy.
If you were to consider it, I would consider it a single act.
Single act, okay. Well, then I'll make a motion, just to start the discussion, to fine for work on the property without a permit for $300.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? Well,
No comment?
No comment.
No comment?
No comment.
my comment is, I think the point has to be made, even though it's a minor blip compared to everything that's going on here. It's like continued work without regard to permitting requirements. So I'm in favor of it. Given that, the motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
One opposed, one abstention?
511,
Okay.
motion passed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a happy holiday, Stephanie.
I'm sticking around for the
Oh,
amended order for the bulkhead.
well, we drafted it. If you want to see the draft, I can share it with
We'll
you.
be discussing it, though. Yeah, so I just wanted to.
Okay, sure, sorry.
Okay, next on the agenda is a notice of intent for 3 Mark Lane, map 30, parcel G5-3, for new dwelling appurtenances.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kieran Healy. I'm a land surveyor with the BSC Group in Yarmouth, representing the owners of the property here, Mr. Gifford. I was here before you first back in August, and we discussed this property at that time. When we were here, the house that I proposed and the septic I proposed were closer to the wetlands than they are in this revised plan. We were able to relocate the septic system so it was exactly 100 feet outside the wetland buffer. Outside the wetland, so we meet the 100-foot wetland buffer. And we also able to relocate the house so that now only 100 square feet of the deck that's associated with the house is within the 0 to 100-foot buffer. You will see that we had proposed a straw wattle line along right at the edge of the 75-foot distance to the wetland. And after some discussions with Amy earlier in the week, we added some 6x6 wooden posts to the 75-foot line as basically a restricted line so that the daily use of the property will not go less than 75 feet to the edge of the wetland. The posts we propose are 6x6 wooden posts, 18 inches above grade and 20 feet on center. So they will be basically easily seen from one to the next. We will have to go in front of the Board of Health with this. The grading we've done is basically limiting it to this northeast corner of the property, and we've tried to minimize our entire disturbance on the site with these revisions. Other than that, I'd be glad to answer any questions that the Commission may have.
Amy, do you
Nope,
have comments?
I appreciate you taking the commission's comments into consideration and getting the septic outside the 100-foot buffer. Also are proposing a microfast IA septic system to further reduce nitrogen. The limit of work is about 75 feet from the wetland. The closest structure is the staircase at about 92. Only the staircase and the small corner of the deck are within the 100-foot buffer, and as well as a little bit of grading. Near the deck, they're bringing in about 2 feet of fill, and as you head northeast, it decreases to about 1. Kieran has changed the plan, and they were minor changes, so I just asked him to bring a copy to the meeting tonight, which he did. There was a little confusing to me. There was a note regarding mitigation on an adjacent property, which you recently approved on Sisson Road. That was on this plan, but it was on the other property, but it was confusing, so they removed that. And as this is a vacant natural lot, there's not really a lot of room for mitigation in the typical sense. I think the installation of IA technology is a positive, and they are willing to make that 75-foot line a no disturb zone. My only small nitpicky thing about that is the posts being 20 feet apart. It's pretty wide. I would love to see a low rail or something like that added to that. Again, to prevent mowers and things like that, not to prevent people from necessarily walking back there, but to be a little bit more of something rather than posts just 20 feet on center.
We don't have a problem adding that. The reason I had left them 20 feet on center and open is because the last time we were here, some of the neighbors were here and they showed photographs of animals in the area traversing this area. So as a result, I just put in the posts.
Yeah.
As I say, we don't have a problem putting in a rail if that's what the Commission would like to see, but that's the reason that we didn't, is because of the animals that were shown in the photographs from the neighbors.
Yeah. And that would be something that we could put in the conditions too. My recommendation is, it's only 18 inches above grade, so if you just do a low rail, most animals can get over and under it, and it would just provide more of a barrier for lawnmowers and things like that. So with that condition, I would recommend approval.
Okay, thank you. Stan?
I have no additional. I have no comments, pretty straightforward.
Just one comment on the split rail. So would that be in the order as something that had to be there going forward? Or would it be released with a cert of compliance?
Would not be released by a
So
cert.
that the rail would be there going
If
forward?
that being said, it's not a, conservation restriction. What it is, it's gonna be an order saying that will be a no disturb zone, not to be released by a certificate of compliance. Should a future owner or this owner want to come back and propose anything, it is their right to do so,
Mhm.
but it would be, I would see an ongoing condition that would go forward with the order.
Okay, thank you for that. No further questions?
No questions.
I respectfully disagree. I'd rather just see the 20-foot post, in my opinion, but everything else looks good. Thanks.
No comment.
Any other comments? Otherwise, do we have a motion?
Sure. I'll move that we approve the notice of intent for 3 Mark Lane, map 30, parcel G5-3.
Second?
Discussion? No further discussion. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Thank you.
Take these back and these, if you don't mind, big copies.
Okay, next on the agenda is notice of intent for 14 Mill Point Road, map 1, parcel J194, proposed pier, ramp, float, and dredging. There's been a request for a continuance
Yep,
to February 1st, 2023.
yep.
Um,
They need to go back to waterways in January, so.
Any discussion? Any comments? Jim?
Yeah, the only question I have is that this item has been continued a number of times. And while I understand there are probably some details that the applicant is trying to work out before they come back to us, I'm wondering if maybe we should continue this indefinitely until the applicant is ready, and then the applicant could contact Amy and reschedule the continued hearing.
I don't necessarily have a preference. They thought they were ready to come, but they weren't in this case. They are required to go back to waterways. I agree that it's been continued a few times. So it is your right to continue it indefinitely. They would have to re-notify abutters, which that not necessarily our purview, but that would just be another thing. That would be something on them that they would have to do. So maybe what I would request is allow them this continuance, but say no further if they're gonna do it any more continuances, that it's gonna be indefinitely continued. Just a suggestion.
Any other comments?
I guess I would just add, I wouldn't want to see extra cost associated with that if they had to pay to notify
There
the
is.
butters. So I share your concern, Jim, because it's happened a lot. And what I worry about is a continuance from a light meeting like this to a really busy meeting. And that's not their concern, but that's our problem. But I guess I agree with Amy. See if they can make it happen soon, and maybe bring this up again.
Yeah, I agree with Amy too. From what I'm reading here, it looked like they were ready, but they had to go to waterways, so it's like, give them one more
Go
chance.
back to waterways, yeah. If February 1st doesn't come to fruition, then I absolutely agree. Indefinite continuance.
Okay, I think I agree with Amy as well. Let's give them one more
Okay, okay.
at-bat here, and,
Good point to bring up.
Yeah, but if there's no more discussion, I'm ready to make a motion.
okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll move that we continue the public hearing for 14 Mill Point Road, map 1, parcel J1-94, to our meeting of February 1st, 2023, under the condition that if the applicant is not ready to proceed at this meeting, the hearing will be continued indefinitely.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Opposed. Okay. So next, we have orders of conditions, starting with 23 Soundview Road, map 26, parcel L1-10, SE 22-2516, SE 32-2516, 2516 for a detached garage.
I apologize, I don't have a draft here in front of me, I forgot to print it out before coming, but essentially, if you have any questions from my draft, this was a detached garage with associated mitigation planting, it was fairly straightforward, but if you have any, comments on the conditions that were in draft box, let me know.
People a minute, I guess.
I have no comments on this one.
You need more time?
I'm all set.
Someone care to make a motion?
Okay, I'll move that we approve the order of conditions for 23 Soundview Road, map 26, parcel L1-10, SE 32-2516.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Not opposed.
Let me check, cause, Stephanie Sequin said she wanted to stick around for the orders of conditions, and I think she just stepped into the hallway, so let me just go check.
Okay, so next on the agenda is orders and order of conditions for 47 North Road, map 19, parcel S2, amendment to SE 32-2428 for a bulkhead repair.
So this was the driving of 6 anchors, to better stabilize the bulkhead, which is starting to jut out. Does anybody have any questions on the draft conditions?
I have a question, which is, actually it's the final condition from the original order of conditions. It says only driving and securing of the vinyl sheets behind the existing wood wall is allowed by the permit. Are those sheets behind the wood wall?
They are.
Okay.
Yep,
I was picturing the
yep, so
vinyl.
on the outside?
but
No,
not.
it's
Okay.
behind, they didn't wanna move the wood because it would destabilize everything. So a lot of times with these seawalls, they go behind. And they don't take the old one out, so, and it didn't have the other, any anchoring, so this is, that allowed that, but now you are amending to allow further work.
Right.
There's a funny little typo on that number 8 special condition.
Okay?
I hate to even bring it up. It's like an extra period at the start.
I will fix extra period on number 8.
No significance to the language at all. And we did approve that for barge work if needed. Is that how that went? Yeah, okay.
I think the way I wrote it is to give the applicant some leeway. I think their hope is to do it from the land going over, but I did put in there by barge, just to give him some leeway if he finds out it just can't be aground.
Okay, do we need more time? Do we have a motion?
Sure, I'll move that we approve the order of conditions for 47 North Road, map 19, parcel S2, amendment to SE 32-2428.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Okay.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Stephanie. You too.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we have certificates of compliance, starting with certificate of compliance for 19 Nons Road, map 6, parcel C1-12, SE 32-2349 for additions.
So there were additions where the front entryways on the non-water side of the house, and some mitigation planting to beefing up the buffer zone and get rid of a little bit of lawn. So they were supposed to submit an as-built site plan according to the order. They didn't. They resubmitted their proposed plan, but I went out there because the additions were very minor. They were front entryways. And I did an inspection and found the work to have been done in compliance and measured it. In this case, I don't think even though it was in there, I think we can let this one slide, not having an as-built, because the proposed plan does match what's out there. The plantings have been in for almost 2 years and are doing well, and I would recommend a cert of compliance with ongoing conditions of no fertilizer or chemical use.
Okay. Any discussion?
I will make a motion that we approve the certificate of compliance for 19 Nuns Road, map 6, parcel C1 -12, SE 32-2349, with ongoing conditions for no fertilizer or chemical use on the property.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unopposed? Okay, next is certificate of compliance for 43 Shore Road, map 2, parcel B14, SE 32-1272 for seaweed removal.
This property is in the process of transferring. The permit has long since expired. I would recommend a cert of compliance with no ongoing conditions. If new owners wish to do any work, they would have to refile with the commission.
Any discussion? Okay, do we have a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion that we approve the certificate of compliance for 43 Shore Road, map 2, parcel B14, SE 32-1272.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unopposed? Okay, finally, certificate of compliance for 5 Brooks Road, map 5, parcel A1-2, SE 32-2405 for demo and rebuild.
The owner worked really well with our department before, during, and after construction, and routinely still has me out there to look at things. So, as per the letter from Moran Engineering, there's a few small things that weren't precisely as approved, such as there being a deck instead of a patio. It's in the same footprint. It is pervious, goes through. The stairs leading from the deck down are actually 6 feet longer, but they're in the approved path to the beach. The reason, and I approved this administratively, the dune shifted. It wouldn't have cleared the dune the way it was designed originally, and now it clears the dune. So I would recommend a cert of compliance with ongoing conditions, no fertilizers or chemicals.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Sure, I'll move that we approve the certificate of compliance for 5 Brooks Road, map 5, parcel A1-2, SE 32-2405, with ongoing conditions of no fertilizer or chemical use on the property.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Okay, so next on the agenda is a show cause hearing for Texera Conservation Lands for unpermitted dumping and creation of trails on town-owned conservation land.
Come on up if you want, Mr. Jones. If the commission wants, I'll give a brief overview, and Mr. Jones can share with you kind of his history with the property as well. So over the past years, there has been some accumulation of mostly vegetative debris on the Texera Conservation property. And it's trees and debris like that, and Mr. Jones can tell you about when, where that all came from. But over the past couple years, it's been noted that there's been a little bit more coming up, as we were told today, most likely because of the tornado and the debris there. So about a year ago, I brought it to the commission's attention, and I said at the time I couldn't say if it was on our property or on the neighbor's property. You gave me the okay to hire a surveyor to take a look at that. It took a while, but we got that surveyed plan, and it did show a pile of about 2,000 square feet of debris that is on town conservation land, as well as some new tracks and trails. So sent Mr. Jones a letter that you had in your packet, as well as a copy of this plan, so he could look at it as well. He came into my office today, and a couple of you met him on the site today. My recommendation would be, there seems to be a little bit of discrepancy between where the plan shows there to be a bound and what's marked out in the field. And I'd like to get our surveyor back out there with me and Mr. Jones present to verify where they think that bound is, the one that's closest to the wetland. But then afterwards, it breeze on town land to, by the spring or into the spring, be moving that pile off-site or back onto your property. So, if you have anything you'd like to add?
Not really, just, I thought it was my land, and there was a dump there originally, all kinds of, both properties were farms at one time, and I found all kinds of metal, debris. There was stump dumps, and I just added to it, because I thought, when I was sold the property, we were told that that's, where the boundary line was.
Mm-hmm.
So I've added to it.
Yeah. So,
And this and that, well, I own the property before you guys actually
mhm,
came across conservation, so I've been dumping there for 22 years.
mhm.
So do we have comments or questions, starting with Wayne?
Are you agreeable to taking that pile out of there, Rick?
I'll move it.
Yeah.
I just feel that it's gonna do more damage than
Yeah.
leaving it there, but
I didn't get a chance to go up there to see it today, but I feel if Mr. Jones is willing to work with us and get it cleaned up, I'm happy with that. Yeah.
I feel the same way.
Yeah, I agree, but I do think that we should proceed, as Amy suggested, to go out in the field with the surveyor and with Mr. Jones to sort of formalize exactly where the bound is and formalize exactly where the property line is, so that everybody's on the same page as that. I also do feel that I think what we should do is just give a reasonable deadline as, once that's established, as to when it should be moved, someplace far enough out in advance to give you time to do it, maybe sometime in the spring. And I'm not exactly sure what that deadline would be.
yeah, I mean, it isn't something that's gonna happen overnight.
No, I mean,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
a
it's
few
an
months.
accumulation of 20 years.
Yeah,
I think I had tentatively suggested May 1st, but if you can
Does
show
that
some
sound
effort,
reasonable to you,
then we
Mr.
can
Jones?
work with you.
If that sounds reasonable to you, Mr. Jones, then I think that would be what we would establish.
No further questions?
No, we're going.
Stan? Yeah, I agree with what's been said. There is some metal debris, very clearly on, and other stuff like concrete stuff that who knows where it comes from, but, and I don't know that it's Mr. Jones's responsibility, but we should look into getting that stuff removed.
Yeah, if Mr. Jones, because the easiest way to get to it is through your property, I think, correct?
Well, that's why the trails are there. That's how
Yeah.
I got through that. I have a small bobcat.
Yeah.
And that's how I moved everything, so it's not,
Yeah.
I've tried to get a bigger machine in there and I can't do
We
it.
do have a small Bobcat, or if you'd be willing, if we were to give some manual labor to help pull the stuff out, to grab it, then,
Yeah, I'll work with you, however you
yeah,
need.
we will get the other stuff out.
Okay, so what do we need to do here? Maybe we just wait until the
Let's,
revisiting the survey?
let's revisit this, after, we'll get the surveyor out there, we'll give you, how about an update in a month?
Okay.
We'll pencil it in and we won't set the second meeting in January, we'll pencil in an update. Hopefully I can get the surveyor out at least to take a look at it.
Okay, well, you didn't want me to touch it until, because of the wildlife, so.
The pile, right.
Right.
No, so we're not anticipating you doing any work within the month, other than maybe we can get the metal out, but not the vegetation. I wouldn't do it over the winter time.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's nothing else you need to do at this time.
So what's gonna happen now? You're gonna get the surveyor out?
I'm gonna
and then we're gonna
coordinate
have
with
another
the
meeting?
surveyor.
What's
If
the
we can
next?
come to an agreement of, like, if the surveyor says this is the line and we establish a line for you, you may not need to come back here until, and if you move the stuff by May-ish, you may not need to come back. But I don't wanna lose track of it either, so I was penciling in to at least give them an update maybe on the survey within a month.
Okay. So you'll be in touch with me?
I will be in touch with you.
Okay.
Can you do me a favor, because all I have right now, I think, is your address. Can you write down your phone number for me? Just write it here. Or email, whichever you prefer.
Okay.
Thank you. 50.
All right?
Thank you,
All
got
right,
it.
Good, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Take care.
So we don't need to take any action right now?
You don't, I don't think so.
So
Yeah, I think he's gonna
next
work
on the
with us.
agenda is a show cause hearing for 117 Riverside Drive for unpermitted cutting of vegetation within the riverfront area and buffer zone.
Could we ask that that be taken up a minute later in the meeting? I'm having a hard time getting my expert in to go to meeting. You got a couple other quick things to do? And I have her on the phone right now.
We can do, he was online, the Witchmere, Jonathan Schuster, we could do the Witchmere Habitat Conservation Plan first.
Okay, let's do that.
I'm trying, if you saw, I've been
Yeah,
over talking to him. I got her on the phone here and we're trying to get her
Okay,
hooked up. Not
Thank
sure
you.
why it's not happening, so.
Okay, so Witchmere Habitat Conservation.
she can also call in. Okay,
I'll give them the number already.
all right. Sorry, John.
So shall we discuss the Witchmere thing? Aren't there two pieces to this?
Sorry, it's the, yes, it's the beach management plan and the habitat conservation plan. I see his name on the list, but I don't see his screen up. Jonathan Schuster, are you available?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, and my video should be going as well. I don't know if you're
It
able to
is.
see me or not.
Yep. We can.
Great, I'm here. I'm ready to talk about Witchmere.
Yes, we're ready to
Shall
talk.
I jump into it?
Please.
Yes, please.
Great. So yes, Jonathan Schuster with SWCA on behalf of Witchmere Beach Club and Witchmere Harbor Real Estate. There are two components, one of which we discussed at the last meeting, which is the beach management plan. Just to sum that up, what I was looking for with the beach management plan was a letter of support from the commission. In essence, the beach management plan is a summation of all the compliant shorebird monitoring that's been done at the site to date, and that's partnering with the Coastal Waterbird Program at Mass Audubon. So in consultation with them and also in consultation with Witchmere to describe all the uses of the site, we put together the beach management plan as a precursor to the habitat conservation plan, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. So sort of step one in terms of your commission would be seeking a letter of support, basically indicating that you don't see any jurisdictional issues or have any other problems with the beach management plan as it relates to wetland resource areas and everything protected by the Wetlands Protection Act in your bylaw. Just a note, there's been a little bit of new information, which I believe was relayed to Amy, which is that in 1992, under permit SE 32886, there was approval for a number of the operational practices, including the snow fencing and beach grooming, which dates back pretty long ways. And I'll also remind the commission the 2019 permit alluded to the beach raking, which occurs. So with that, I wanted to know if there were any questions about the beach management plan. I'm happy to speak to any part of it more in depth.
So I would suggest that we take the two things up separately so as not to confuse them. So the first thing is the beach management plan, which, as Jonathan had mentioned, is a report on the activities as they've been doing them, and a little bit more than that about how they're expected to continue to do them in the future. And upon reading it, it's more inclusive than certainly the 1992 order of conditions, which allowed, with a certificate of compliance, for ongoing beach raking and snow fence installation and shorebird monitoring. So the beach management plan is more inclusive. They're not proposing to change anything under the beach management plan. It's to set the stage for what's happening, what should be happening, before they make the jump to ask to do the changes, and the changes are what they're proposing are in the habitat conservation plan. So my recommendation to you, I took the liberty of drafting a support letter for the beach management plan to Natural Heritage, and I handed that out to you on your table tonight. And then I would recommend that you support that is accurate, and that I'm not ready to make a recommendation on the habitat conservation plan, but that we hear more from Jonathan and ask him more questions before taking that up again on January 4th.
Okay. So maybe we should discuss the beach management plan, look for comments on that and Amy's recommendation. Starting with Stan.
Well, it sounds like from what Amy was saying is this is more up to date than our old order of conditions, so I would agree with Amy that we would support this.
I have no remarks at this time.
Brian.
Got to go with Amy's recommendation. I have a very poor understanding of how natural heritage processes connect with our processes, so whatever she says is fine. I guess I have a quick question while you're in the line. Page 5 of the plan has piping plover presence from 1918 to present. Is there any data before 2018? Is there any data before 2018?
There is indeed. For the purposes of this filing, when I consulted with NHESP, Natural Heritage, they really are looking at the last 5 years. The number of plover has increased at the site. So I think, you know, if you can look at that trajectory, this past year, so 2022 and 2021, there were 5 pairs more lease turns. So it's in motion. That data is available. It's, you know, Mass Audubon has it, the state has it. I didn't include it, but, you know, it's certainly, you know, out there. If there was something germane to the discussion here, it could be sought.
Yeah, not really germane, just curious. Was there a time when they did not show, when monitoring did not find them at this location?
Not in the time that I've been
Yes.
here.
I'm pretty sure there have been years within the last couple decades when there was not a pair at the site. I don't know offhand when that was. And keep in mind that the number of pairs in the state has dramatically increased since they were listed in the late 80s, and you know the symbolic fencing started to go up. I think the number of pairs started out at, I think, in the mid 100s, maybe 150 pairs, just throwing out a number, and now it's closer to about 700. So it's a huge success story, putting up the symbolic fencing, and there's a lot more plovers now in more places over time.
Okay, I agree with Amy's recommendation, and I have reviewed the letter that Amy drafted and find the letter is fine, and I'm in agreement with everything Amy said in the letter. I just have sort of a technical question as to whether the letter should come from Amy or whether it should come from John as chairman of the commission.
Yeah,
Do you have an opinion?
no, I mean, I had put me, but submitted on behalf of the commission pending a vote for it tonight. But I am more than happy to change that to John and have him come in and sign it.
Okay.
I don't think it makes a difference to Heritage. They just want a comment letter from the commission.
Okay, if
John.
it doesn't make any difference, then I could go either way.
Oh, it says on the bottom, submitted.
Yeah.
Alan?
No comment.
No comment.
So what we need to do now, right, is vote on whether we're going
To support the
to support the letter.
beach management plan
Support the beach management.
and issue this comment letter.
Right.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we support the beach management plan submitted to the commission for the Wedgemere Beach Club in Harwich, Massachusetts, and authorize Amy to submit the letter to Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program as presented to us tonight.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unopposed? Okay, thank you.
So now we'll talk about the habitat conservation plan.
All right, if I may just jump in, I will. And I will try to share my screen here. Hopefully that works out. Are you seeing the figure here?
Yep.
Great. So in essence, and thank you very much in terms of your support of the beach management plan. So the HCP, the Habitat Conservation Plan, is a process whereby the state, so Natural Heritage, seeks approval from the federal government, from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, to impact plovers. So plovers are both federally listed and state listed. We also have lease turn nesting at the site, which are just state listed, but also protected by things like the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. So what we're trying to do here is provide a little bit more of operational space that's compliant with the HCP guidelines that have been issued by the state. So Natural Heritage implements the Habitat Conservation Plan on behalf of numerous partners, and many of those are larger town beaches. There are some smaller sites. Witchmere is on the smaller end of the spectrum in terms of sites that are in the plan or could be candidates under the plan. So in a very strict and narrow way, we are seeking to use more of the beach, which will result in a take of piping plover and potentially lease turn. And that take is very limited in that it can only be certain approved covered activities. And those covered activities have been outlined. They are, for instance, a reduction in preemptive symbolic fencing starting on April 1st. So if you see the figure here, the gray, slightly larger line would be sort of a maximum in an ideal scenario of symbolic fencing that would go up on April 1st. I will say that in the past, there has been a bit of discretion at the site, and Audubon has been a partner in figuring out the extent of that fencing and what's needed for the birds. The kind of more, I guess it's more of a brown color, that this would be an example of a 20% reduction in symbolic fencing, which could take effect on April 1st, or they may elect to do it later. And it could be in a different footprint. If Witchmere's operations decided that, it would be really valuable to have a pedestrian corridor to allow, guests to come down to the water here, they might shift that as long as the square footage is the same. So basically, this is building in flexibility. So reduced preemptive symbolic fencing is one modality of take. The next that we're discussing here is reduced buffers to nests. So the state and the federal government have guidelines of about 50 yards is ideal. So 150 feet is ideal for a stretch of fencing beyond where a nest is actually located to just moderate any impacts to the behavior of the birds, not spook them off the nest, and eggs can be impacted. By the heat of the sun can actually cook eggs. The nest could be abandoned. So those are very broad guidelines, and they're not implemented everywhere. For instance, you can't really put up fence 50 meters towards the water because you'd have fence, out here in the water. So there's lots of exceptions and ways that there's discretion. But we are seeking a reduction up to as close as 10 yards from certain nests. And I'll also say that all of this will be implemented under the watchful eye of Mass Audubon, the Coastal Waterbird Program. So this plan involves an increased budget for shorebird monitoring, and it involves an offset payment for take. So basically, we will be funding the preservation of plover at other sites and lease turns to boot because they share habitat. And at the same time, there'll be an increased monitoring presence at the site. And that's why the beach management plan that you just voiced your support for is very important because it laid the groundwork for what is an ideal in terms of signage at the site, public engagement, dog policy. All these things have been set in stone with the beach management plan so that we can move forward with these slight exceptions, slight reductions in fencing here and there. Another thing I'll note is that beyond May 24th, there can be additional discretionary reductions in fencing. So this brown footprint here past May 24th, we're hoping that we can, reduce buffers further to the nest beyond that 20% number that I talked about in the beginning. The other thing I'll mention, and I hope to not confuse the situation too much, but this green footprint here is sort of a prospective revamping and replanting of beach grass that was part of the 2019 order of conditions. We are not in any way saying that your approval of the HCP is an approval to replant. We anticipate filing for an amended order of conditions early in 2023. I just wanted to decouple that process from this approval here. So it's sort of, take it or leave it. It really doesn't impact the HCP either way. For now, we're saying, let's leave the beach as it is, but I just wanted to put that out there that we do anticipate that coming, and we'll be going in front of you to make that case. And Amy has reviewed the site in that regard. And the HCP goes into a lot more detail about the types of activities that'll be taking place, beach wedding ceremonies, and there's, volleyball courts here, and there's things going on and ways that we can protect the birds at the same time. And it sort of just plans for these different contingencies and how we respond to them with the added flexibility that we are allowed a take. And in this case, take just means altered behavior, which could theoretically result in impacts to plovers. So that's just the rough outline of this. Happy to answer specific questions. And again, I understand you'll take your time with it, and I'm happy to return at the next meeting and we can discuss this further.
Okay, thank you. Amy, do you?
Do you have any feedback, anything in writing from Mass Audubon about the proposed HCP? And if you do, would you be able to share it with us?
Sure. So they've been involved in the process to a degree. Their provisionary budget for implementing this is included in the materials that you received. So they've looked this over. It's a draft budget because there's going to be a lot more discussion over the winter. Certain elements of this could require daily monitoring. Could require more than that, almost a dedicated monitor on site. So it's sort of a give and take in terms of, well, which activities will Witchmere implement? And then, well, what does the monitoring response need to look like? So Audubon is very much at the table. Again, it was Audubon and NHESP that approached Witchmere that said, hey, Witchmere, you're a good candidate for this HCP. And Witchmere, wasn't aware of the program. I've worked with shorebirds for a while, and I wasn't fully aware of all the ins and outs of this program. So it's been a really great experience, working with the state, talking with Audubon folks, because they have such a depth of knowledge about the site in terms of how can we best implement this. And Witchmere is a very good use case for this plan. A very relatively small beach with a lot going on, a lot of pairs of birds. And we're hopeful that in implementing this, yes, we're getting permission for a take, but with the BMP elements and the other protections and monitoring, it will still be a very productive beach for piping plover and least tern.
I don't have any other questions at this time.
Do we have other comments,
None for
questions?
me.
Yeah, I just had one question. I had, quickly reviewed the plan, and one of the proposals in there for that this plan would allow, under certain conditions and if necessary, the relocation of nests once they had been established. And I was wondering whether or not that you are aware of any place where that has been done successfully.
It has been done elsewhere along the eastern seaboard. To date, nest moving has never, ever been conducted in the state of Massachusetts under the HCP. So what we were instructed to do was basically, excuse the expression, take a kitchen sink approach here. We wanted to include every possible modality of flexibility that we could for Witchmere to include in this, because basically, if you think about it, the state is taking it to the feds for approval. We wanted to include everything in there that we might remotely want to consider in the future. If, for instance, a plover nested, in a very inconvenient location, and this is how it's used at other sites. Other sites have permission to use to move nests, but they never have. If a plover, nested at a parking lot entrance at a major public beach that was part of the HCP, theoretically, that could be an occasion where a beach manager could consult with NHESP and say, hey, is this worth doing? I will note there's quite a lot of text in the HCP regarding nest moving. It is a last resort measure, and it is not something that can be conducted without NHESP oversight. So literally the state ornithologist, Drew Vitz, or someone else from NHESP would literally have to be on site to oversee it and give their permission. So it's probably one of the more extreme elements when you see it on paper in the HCP, but it is extremely unlikely to happen. This plan could be in effect for 20, 25 years, and it would probably never happen. But it's in there just to retain that little extra bit of flexibility, and why not? And that was sort of the state's approach, that they wanted us to include everything that could possibly be of use to the site.
Okay, just a follow-up question. You said that this approach has never been used in Massachusetts, but it's been used other places in the United States. Am I correct on that?
That's my understanding. So there is a paper that is referenced, and excuse me, I'm forgetting the author. There is a specific methodology using a specialized shovel and other things, which is how a nest could or should be moved. I'm not an expert at it, but we reference that methodology, and that's what the state would be relying on when they basically do it. I mean, the state would be the one to implement that. And keep in mind that the take is limited. So whether it's moving a nest, whether it's something as simple as bumping the fencing in closer to a pair, Witchmere is not allowed to do that to every plover pair at the site. There's a limited number of take, and they need to decide with Audubon, which pairs represent, the greatest impact. Where do they want to have a little bit more operational beach use, and that's where the fencing would be brought in. And again, really the guts of this HCP is reduced fencing. There's going to be a little bit less fencing on the beach, a little bit more wiggle room for Witchmere's operations, but that goes hand in hand with increased monitoring and more of a partnership with Witchmere, because Audubon can't be there every moment of every day. But it's sort of an exciting partnership, and the state is excited about it as well, as sort of a use case for this HCP.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Brad,
No comments.
Mark.
No comment.
Okay, so I have a question which is about process here, which I don't believe I've heard you talk about. Is this like a bottom-up approval process? That is, you're here first, and then it goes to the state, and then you've referred to it going up to the federal government, but can you just describe that here? What are the jurisdictions we're dealing with and authorities?
Sure. So the reason I'm here in front of you is because in tandem with filing the HCP, I wanted to relay it to your commission. For the BMP that you just voiced your support for, we were specifically asked because it, establishes, the beach raking regime and other things, just checking. The state wanted Witchmere to check with your commission that, hey, this sort of business as usual, best version of how we could be managing this beach, it is compliant with your bylaw and your implementation of the WPA. When it comes to the HCP, I think technically the state can approve it whether or not you issue your letter of support. I'm just here to kind of, make you aware of it, and it would be nice to have a letter of support for it. I think the BMP letter, which is being issued now, is actually kind of more important, believe it or not, to the process. And the state is the one who administers the permission to take. So the state goes to the federal government and basically has like a pool of takes that they can allocate to different sites. And that's based on the total state population of plovers and a very low percentage of them being impacted. And I'm not privy to all the math there, but the federal government would be made aware of Witchmere's entrance, and they would issue what's called an incidental take permit under a certificate of inclusion. So again, that's not a process that I'm doing or Witchmere's doing. That's a process that the state, that Natural Heritage is doing for all plan participants under the HCP. And other states, I believe, have similar habitat conservation plans, but Massachusetts specifically has a bundle that they can sort of allocate to different entrants into the plan, of course with adequate mitigation. And that was a big part of our filing was, sort of what is the offset, and establishing that BMP first, that you need to have the beach management plan be doing things the right way before you sort of subtract under the HCP. I hope that answers your question.
Right, but the HCP, as I understand what you're describing, is proposing to change the way things are done on that beach in a way that I thought would have been within the jurisdiction of the Harwich Conservation Commission. Sounds to me like you're saying, no, it's just up to the state and the feds. So I'm confused here. Somebody help me with this. Amy, do you understand this? Do you?
To be honest, I haven't fully digested it all yet, so I'm not prepared to comment.
And Jonathan, any further response?
I could speak a little bit more to that if you like, in terms of Wetlands Protection Act and perhaps your bylaws jurisdiction. Certainly we're in your commission's jurisdiction. A lot of the activities that we propose and some of the deterrence measures that would be implemented would be within the space on the beach. In my mind, from a wetlands standpoint, there's not a whole lot that I see that's truly impactful and deviating from what has already been approved. So take beach raking, for example. Under this plan, and keep in mind that beach raking already happens, let's say it's, late March. So, the fencing goes in on April 1st. The fence is already raked. Sorry, I'm mixing up my words here. The beach is already raked in totality in many cases, before and after the nesting season. So beach raking already occurs. It's done in a compliant way during the nesting season, and we're not proposing to change that. So in essence here, with a slight reduction in fencing on the beach, there would be additional area that is now able to be raked. So in terms of your commission's jurisdiction, the same monitoring would occur. So for every brood of piping plover that's out on the beach, there's a dedicated Audubon monitor that's there with binoculars, making sure that the plovers don't come in the way of the mechanized beach rake. That all stays the same. It's just we're talking slight changes in area. So in my mind, all of that is encompassed by the beach management plan, as well as the what's happened there to date, dating all the way back to 1992 with approval to, do some management activities at the beach. And so my priority here is to make sure that your commission feels comfortable that, natural heritage in terms of rare species is looking at this, making sure that I've dotted my I's and crossed my T's, but that your commission feels comfortable with those elements that fall under your jurisdiction. If there is any that you feel is deviating from the norm.
Okay, well, my sense about this is we need to give the commissioners some time. Are you thinking 2 weeks? That is, we revisit this on, what is it?
Yeah,
the
we
4th?
have, we have a fairly light agenda, it looks like, next meeting.
Okay.
So if people could take time and read it. I have some background research and stuff to do.
Right.
Typically, I don't want to jinx myself, typically the week between Christmas and New Year's is a little bit quieter in our office. So that'll allow me some more time too. Yeah, I'd like to see it on the 4th.
Okay, well, do we have any further questions, comments, discussion? Doesn't look like it. So, thank you, sir. And we will plan to put this on the agenda on the 4th.
1-4.
Great. Thank you all very much for your time and for your support of the beach management plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
Night. Go
Okay,
back
so
to Riverside Drive.
now we're back to show cause for 117 Riverside Drive for unpermitted cutting of vegetation within the riverfront area and buffer zone. Are we all hooked up?
Yes, we've come right into that. Paul Revere for Kerry Sullivan, the owner of 117 Riverside Drive. I believe we had,
Just hung up or something.
okay, but we will be able to get her, Tabitha Eldridge, on by phone. I'm just gonna send her a text that she seems to have been lost. She may know that already. But I have some info to start. I can hear you guys, she says. She can hear us.
I don't know what to say.
I saw her phone was way down.
Yeah, she was there.
Call her too. She's on the system, so
Okay.
she speaks up, she'll be able to.
So star 6 is if she's on the phone, she has to hit star 6 to unmute herself.
And she can hear that, so I'm not gonna text it.
Yep,
So-
looks like she did.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so, just a little quick background. Amy, Ms. Usowski, Administrator Usowski, arranged to have a site visit together with Tabitha Eldridge of Davenport Tree Company on December 5th. Tabitha had a medical emergency with one of her children on that day. I won't go into the details of that, other than to say it took a couple days to clear up, and the child is fine. But that's why the meeting didn't happen together. And then took a couple days. Once her child was better, we tried to set up a meeting, but that wasn't able to happen. Tabitha and I were at the property today. She is on the phone because she had a business dinner that she didn't know about beforehand, and also she can't seem to get a video link. So I have her photos here. I also have some photos that I took myself, and to address the matter. So I'm gonna first provide these photos and just a little quick background on it. I've numbered the photos in my handwriting, because I think it's relevant to what we're discussing here. I'm gonna start from the first point. You circulated your memo with the photos?
Memo and the photo, yep, to
Yep,
them as
okay,
well.
yeah.
Just like I did, yep, to you guys and to them, they have it.
Okay, so, just to sort of come back to this, there was the photos that Ms. Husowski took on December 5th. And I just want to respond briefly to them, and some of that will come back to the photos that I brought here, as I say. The photos that Ms. Husowski took, the first photo shows pea stone and other dumped debris, and the second one shows cement and bluestone. Ms. Eldridge and I walked around the property. I have some other photos. You will find that the 123 Riverside Drive property has multiple locations of various debris, cement throughout the place. In fact, both Tabitha and I noted that the pea stone matches the pea stone of the property to the north, and in fact, some of the stone pieces that are on the ground seem to match this stone wall. It is our position that the stuff that's at the surface that you can see that's up there is stuff that either has always been at the surface, or some of it might have been, as Mr. Sullivan mentioned when he was here previously. They did drive the loader back into the area. But he did not dump anything new out there. That is looking at that. The third photo shows an area that ground cover and shrubs were removed. We've been out there, I think Ms. Eldridge called it bayberry. It does appear that some bayberry was moved in there. I wouldn't necessarily call them shrubs, but I don't think there's a lot of disagreement that a little something was cleared in that area. The timing of it is not completely clear. There is then the fourth photo, which is essentially the photo where the vehicle went. Ms. Eldridge can talk to that a little, but it's a very soft surface there, and anything that came across it disturbs it. And I think to a large extent, we discussed this, that some areas that might look like someone pulled up a plant of some significant size are actually probably caused by vehicle tracks. I mean, if you kick the ground there, you can get into this very composted material soil. There is also a photo that Ms. Usowski looks at, calls it tree number 1 cut over the bank. It was our actual joint conclusion. There's no question that what you have in the picture is a new cut, but we actually believe that's a branch that was from the tree cut number 2 at the top of the bank, okay, in that area, that it isn't a completely separate tree. And that's because of its location and that there being no other tree cut of that width in that area. Cut number 2, Mr. Sullivan sat right here next to me and said his guys cut that tree. It had a problem. He makes no question about that it had been cut. We're not going to disagree at all with that point that's in there. There is also something labeled as cut tree number 3, which is the next photo. That is, it's kind of interesting. It's like almost a double shoot off the same tree. They're so close to each other, but there's no question, looking at it down at the property, Ms. Eldridge and I agree that cut tree number 3 is a recent cut that was in that area. In fact, coming back to another point, I just go back to, in the area near cut number 2, there does appear to be that there was some limbing in that area, and there's a couple areas. And we were somewhat confused why anybody would actually limb in that area to benefit Cary, because it's not even really in the view shed from the house. But there are some limbs that are cut in that area. We're not disagreeing with that at all. Moving down, there is something that's listed as cut tree number 4, and Ms. Eldridge will have a little more detail on that, and I have her photos on my computer here that she can refer to. But that is a cut that she will explain in her professional opinion is a few years old. The same is true of cut tree number 5, and the same is her opinion of cut tree number 6 and cut tree number 7, that based on their color and cracking, they are not some recent cut that was done in that area. Now, I did hand you some photos. I had taken some myself at the time, and I went over to FedEx office, and I just wanted to point out a few issues I think that are relevant and will be relevant to some of the things that Ms. Eldridge is going to discuss. Photo number 1, I had to write on them the numbers at the time, is a photo actually on 123 Riverside. And the point I was bringing out of photo number 1, as you'll see, is there's a large tree that has been there for years that was cut down by the other owner. And it's just typical that the ground cover in that area had all sorts of dead wood in it. This is, I say, way out of, is not really subject to this matter. It's a tree way over on the south side of 123. But that it gives you an idea of the conditions that if you remember, Mr. Sullivan came down and said, I had someone come down here with a small front end loader because there were large pieces of wood here, okay? And it shows you that this prior owner at times cut down full trees and just left them sitting on the ground. So he's, when he's talking about that, it's clear that they're in their area, and I'm gonna show you another photo. The second photo labeled number 2, this is my leg in this photo, where the number 2 is, shows some of the buried cement pieces that are there. And you can see it's well into the ground. And if you walk around the property, you'll see they've been there for a while. Photo number 3 is, you can see some of, I don't know if it's bluestone, but you see the pea gravel in the front, and there's sort of a blackish, it's not really like bluestone, it's not really like asphalt material, but it's underneath the brush. And I'm just pointing out that, as Ms. Usowski mentioned, this pea stone and debris, that's not new material. It is all over that place on lot 123. The next photo is photo number 4. This was not one of the ones that are in any of your other photos, and this is not my leg. This is Tabitha's leg in this photo. But this shows what Mr. Sullivan had talked about, where this is a significant tree, at least 6 inches in diameter, that was cut a long time ago, because you can see it has sprouts growing out of it, okay? It's not something that was cut, in the last couple months. It is dry and cracked, and this one was clearly in the 50-foot buffer zone, but it is not listed in Ms. Usowski's pictures of that. But just how these activities, the prior owner had done some cutting. I think we mentioned before that Mr. Sullivan has only owned the property for about 1.5 years at the moment. I think it comes up at 2 years sometime around in May. Photo number 5 is just more of the miscellaneous debris. It's everywhere out on that lot, the lot 123 next door. Photo number 6, actually, I think is one of the more important photos. If you look at this photo, you'll see, again, the neighbor had cut down years ago large pine trees. This is right next to the area of clearing, and it gives you an idea of the size and scope of the type of wood that was just lying around there, deteriorating, and as to why he brought in heavy equipment. He didn't bring in heavy equipment to yank out roots that were in the ground. He brought them out because, as is shown in this photo number 6, and photos 7 and 8, they're fairly large pieces of wood that are just lying, rotting in various places on the ground on this property, okay? And if you note on the property, it is a couple 100 feet from the road where it is, and as he said when he spoke to you a few weeks ago, he brought it in because it was a long way to carry various pieces. It wasn't something in an attempt to disturb the area. In summary, for my kind of portion of this, we have some disagreement with Ms. Usowski's conclusion on the number of trees that have been cut. We do agree that there are 2 trees that were clearly cut on the property, okay, within your jurisdictional area. Clearly, one is right next to the coastal bank. It is maybe 5 feet from the edge of the top of the bank. The second tree, I think, is probably in the 50 to 100 area that we agree with, that has been cut. And then, of course, as we've discussed in the past, there is some limbing in various areas. It's not completely clear why that limbing was done. I'm kind of thinking that one I mentioned that's not in the view shed is that somebody might have limbed it because it was in their way of cutting down that other tree. Now, I'm going to turn this over to Tabitha. You still with us?
Yes.
Okay. I have your photos on my computer full size in the order you sent them to me. And so if you want to explain what's in the photos, either in the order or how you'd like me to use them, I've got them here.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Hello?
Everything that Mr. Revere said, I completely agree with. As far as my biggest question, I guess, to Amy would be as far as replacing, as you requested, some of these trees. As far as the largest caliber I found was the one that was right on the bank, and that was the 6-inch caliper one. Now, I couldn't get a tree back there that size that I could guarantee if it would replace it in that spot wouldn't just succumb to the erosion and fall right down into the water. And the other thing is getting that tree there, I would have to have a very large machine for a 6-inch caliper. So I'd have to know
No, that
how you would
wouldn't,
feel about that.
that wouldn't be my recommendation or intent to put it in the, in the exact same place. Nor, I mean, in the proximity, but farther away from the top of the bank a little bit. And we generally request like 1 to 1.5 inch diameter trees because they just take, they establish so much easier than the larger trees. So we would not be, whatever number of trees we're looking to replant here, we wouldn't, I'm not saying you have to replace the tree as it came down. You know, you can't put in like something that's 4 feet high, but within reason, you know, 1 to 1.5 inch, 1.5 inch caliper in the general location, but certainly like in that case, not right at the top of the slope where it's undermining.
Okay. A lot of the things that Mr. Revere was talking about with the debris is when we were over on the 123 Riverside area, and I picked up a piece of what I believe is blue flagstone or capstone, and you look immediately to your right if you're looking up at Sullivan's property, and you can see the same exact caps right there, and the same stone is also that 3/4 native and 3/8 native pea stone is also underneath his deck and on his walkway. So I believe, obviously not being able to say for sure, yes, the neighbor is responsible for this debris or the neighbor's contractor, or if it's Mr. Sullivan, but for him only being there 1.5 years, I don't see the algae and the things that are growing on that would have come from something that he just had finished and completed at the end of the summer. So I do believe that stuff on the 123 Riverside was pre-existing to Mr. Sullivan owning the property.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
So 123 Riverside is Mr. Sullivan's property. The property where a lot of these activities occurred is actually 117 Riverside, the neighbor's property where there is no house. The property that you are, the abutting property to the north, that's right on the river, is actually Salt River Lane. So are you saying?
Salt River.
That's the one with literally the house really right at the top of the bank, just to the northeast of Mr. Sullivan's house.
Yes. Yes. If you walk over onto that side towards the that gentleman's house, you can see the same bluestone cap on his, I guess it's not really a retaining wall, but a decorative wall that he has up there. You can see that same bluestone, and it has algae growing on it, the stuff that, was uncovered, whether from him coming through there with a machine or them dragging stuff out. I definitely think it matches the salt, the neighbor right there.
Okay, I am familiar with that property. So,
yeah, he had mentioned that before to me. The other question I have for you, Amy, is some of the underbrush that we have. I know that there was originally an approved plan, and I had spoken to you about changing the plan, and you were okay as long as I presented it to you, and you guys were able to discuss the changes that I was proposing, just to make maybe conservation plants, that get a bad name, maybe we change that a little bit and use some of the plants that are on the list that, you know, are a little bit more appealing than just putting bayberry back in there, or anything else that, I don't know, just to be able to find a way to change people's opinion about regular conservation plantings, that they could be scraggly or, you know, you can't prune them, you can't tame them, they die, that they're not getting the water, irrigation to them. But
Are you
using some of-
talking about so we're just really talking about the current violation, mostly on the neighboring property. Are you going back to talking about the revegetation plan on 123 that Mr. Sullivan has to do?
Yes. I just wonder, I'm only bringing it up because relevance being, if there are violations and things do need to be put back, what kind of process as far as, does he need a new plan to incorporate that? How do we go about putting that into an appropriate plan, being that it's not completely on his property?
Yeah, I'd like to keep this discussion to the matter at hand. If you want to propose a change in plans for Mr. Sullivan's property proper, that's a completely different thing, which you need to,
Yeah, that's a change in
Bring it
plan or an
in.
amendment, and I can speak with you and Tabitha offline about that process. It makes sense to kind of tie in what you'd be proposing to do at 117 with that plan, but it's a separate process.
Yeah.
Well, I just
Perfect,
want to
no
address
problem.
that by memory, because I watched your meeting, I was at the meeting, but I watched it again, so it was fresh in my memory. I recall from the meeting, there was a period of discussion about what should be done to remediate the violation, and there was a period of discussion as to what penalty ought to be imposed, okay? And it was suggested by Ms. Usowski, I believe, that a February 1st date be set to submit a restoration plan, okay? And to do it as part of the enforcement order process.
Yep.
As one area. And so that was one date, and I think that was the final date that came out of the discussion. Now, I'm going slightly on memory from last night. And that this meeting's primary goal and focus was to look at and try to get a better handle on how many, I'll say, large trees were cut, the scope of the actual violation. There was also, I think, general agreement that there was a violation for failure to submit a June 1st report on the existing order of conditions for the property. The report, though being, we weren't able to complete a certain portion of the plan on the order of conditions. So I guess really the focus more of this meeting is to sort of finalize some of those things from that prior meeting. And I say, you can always have the focus of the meeting be what you want, but was to attempt to get a better handle on the trees. And since I have these there, and it was very hard for Tabitha to address, I just want to bring.
You can share, I mean, if you can log into the meeting, you can share that on the big screen too, if you wanted to. Or you
Well,
can,
they're not, nothing here is so detailed. I just want
Okay.
to get them a little closer. This is the first photo, and if you look carefully at it, Tabitha.
now is that Tabitha's photo or my
Tab-
photo? I don't have
Tabitha's.
mine in front of me.
And you can see this cut,
Walk it around.
it's dark, and you can't see the cracks very well, but this is one of the trees, stumps that's out there. The same thing is true of this one. You can see the cracks in it. That was not a recent cut. That's been there for a while, in that area. Because these are out there. This is another one. You can see it's got a little mold in it, and the cut is dark. And I think we all can just go from our own personal knowledge that wood turns gray after time if it sits outside. This is another one of the trees again. You'll see it's there. It's gray in it. Okay, it's a later cut. This was on the ground. This is a branch that's sitting on the ground out there.
Yeah,
It wasn't
that wasn't
removed.
me.
And you can see it's grade, that it was a long time, it was a cut that was a while ago. And the same is true, this is another branch that's out there on the ground in the area where things were going on. So it's just merely, and again, one more, you know, this is all right in the riverfront 50-foot area, but they're not current cuts. And as I think we said, Mr. Sullivan has only owned the property for, it'll be 2 years coming up in May. And while not to attempt to impugn other people, I've spent enough time dealing with real estate on Cape Cod to know that when you're trying to sell a lot, which this property has been subdivided, you want to make it look like it has a nice river view, and it's potentially possible that the prior owner, when they were working through the matter, thought that they would help their ability to sell the property by making cuts. We don't know the answer to it. I think we can know very simply, though, based on the look of those trees, that they weren't cut this fall, given the way they look, the ones that I showed the photos just then.
Which are your photos,
Those photos, yeah.
not the photos that I took.
No, well, I'm saying that we agree to certain that there were clearly 2 trees that were cut. Those were current cuts. Very clear that those were the ones, just so we all understand that. It was your 6th photo. You have it as tree number 2, okay? And we agree that the one that's listed as tree number 3 was clearly recently cut. And we had disagreements, photo number 5, which is the branch that's down, fallen down on the water. That certainly is a new branch, but we think it's the branch that came off tree number 2. And the remainder, which were cut tree number 4, number 5, number 6, and number 7, were based, and Tabitha can explain more of it, that she believes that those were historical cuts, not within the last 3 months or so, based on the conditions of the stumps. Tabitha, do you want to add anything?
No, that's actually it right there. You can tell if you look at the photos that I sent over, you can tell even with someone that tried to peel back the bark on that 6-inch caliper one, you can still see that the graying it's about a 1/4 inch to maybe a little bit more of that down into the wood. The wood's cracked, it's gray, it's molded. I honestly do not believe that was cut in the last 6 months.
I'd like to, I don't have my photos in front of me. I'd like to go grab a copy of my photos.
Okay.
So we'll give Amy a moment.
I have to say one thing, it has nothing to do with the substance that Amy has. The terrible thing is the inability of Tabitha to be there on that same day, to have Ms. Usowski and Tabitha there at the same time, so that they could side by side look at things. And as I alluded to, literally I get the email from Amy. I didn't hear back from Tabitha for 5 days, and I knew something very important has happened. I would rather not share the details to television Harwich for eternity, but I would have no problem sharing them in private. So that's all.
Did the group get to the site today? from the Conservation Commission?
Not that site.
Not that side.
We were there for last meeting, I think it was.
Should have shared just the screen with her.
Yeah, we could do that if Amy's having a problem finding them.
I spent a fair amount of time on,
We have
7
already.
trees, so I think we can move along.
So I wanted to wait to have Amy here when
I agree.
we, commissioners have to comment and weigh in on this, but I just sort of, I don't think it wouldn't be good to do that while here is Amy, so.
Yeah, I'm actually working on also emailing them right now to,
I made a couple extra copies. Because I know they have them in their Dropbox, but sometimes it's
yeah,
easier.
I'm going to send them right now to Tabitha too, so she has them.
So, a lot of the photos that I took are not the trees that you took. I agree that a lot of the trees that you showed have old cuts. The photos of the trees that I took, most, I would say, they have much more recent cuts to them, in my opinion.
Amy, was tree number 4 a pine?
It appears so, yes.
Yeah, was it weeping, any sap? Which pine?
I don't recall. We tried to meet down there a couple times, we were not able to. So I stand by my recommendation to you that there were 7. And they're all in the area where a machine had gone through.
Amy, could you describe to us the ground disturbance at the top of the bank in the 0 to 50? I did not get down there, but from the photograph, was it a machine that went there?
Yep, so in photo, the 4th photo that shows the neighbor's dock in the distance. So that shows where a machine went up to the edge of the top of the coastal bank.
That's what it looks like. That's an area that I'm very familiar with for many, many years. And it's always been a natural top of the bank, a lot of brush. It looks like it has been disturbed.
I will comment, we agree that that's accurately shows the area, photo number 4. Okay, and it was disturbed
Yeah.
by material going,
Yep.
by someone going down. We have no disagreement with that.
And in regards to the stone, I can see both cases. The owner of 117 Riverside was out there at the site with me on the 5th. Granted, nobody saw the stone being dumped, so we can't say definitively, I would say, that it was 123 Riverside Drive or 5 Salt River Lane or anybody else. That stone that is there is the piles that I saw. It's fall. If they had been there quite a while, should have been more leaf litter over them. They're pretty out in the open. But I do know the 5 River Pine did use bluestone caps on the top of their wall, and they did use some native pea stone along their walkways. So I cannot say, maybe I would recommend rescinding, because we cannot prove definitively that the dumping of the construction debris was Mr. Sullivan or not.
Okay, well, let's get comments from others. Wayne?
I was there on I believe it was a November 2nd date, And I agree with Amy about the number of trees. Those trees were, I'm not sure when this work was actually done. In the fall. But I agree with her summation on the number of trees and whatnot that was, and then that branch that was overhanging the bank was, yeah. Yeah, okay.
Not going there and seeing it in person, but seeing some of the photographs down by the bank, that's a fresh cut, that oak tree down there, which they agreed to, so. But I don't know about the other stuff going inwards.
Well, like Wayne, I was there when we visited the property back in November, and I agree with Amy's determination as to what was going on.
I guess my biggest concern is the ground disturbance at the top of the bank. It is a no disturb zone, and we've had a couple issues with the two properties. I don't know, who's doing the work, but it seems like that message is not getting across. So to me, that's kind of a one-off. So I don't know if we can do more than fine for that one ground disturbance, but that's most concerning to me. Secondly, the tree on the bank, we can't ignore that. The second tree, the oak tree that's clearly cut, and then the limbing, I think we can possibly compromise in some of the numbers of trees if we don't have definitive information on them. And then the stone as well, it seems to be in question. But still very concerned about this activity, not the first activity among these two properties. Somebody's trying to, I think, increase access or viewscape, and there should be no activity at all in the 0 to 50, none.
When did Mr. Sullivan purchase that property?
I believe it's May 21.
Oh, 22.
No, May 2021.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, working on a year and a half.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. As far as I'm concerned, I've seen the conditions of the property, and I'm familiar with what it is and how it could be there. We bought a piece of property a year and a half ago. As I see it, if it was in violation at that point, he also bought the violations because he didn't take steps to do anything about it. So I think the problem is not necessarily as clear-cut and as simple as what it is right now. I think there's some pre-existing situations. That's probably proven by some of the vegetation that has aged to the cuts, but the violation still exists. And there hasn't been any effort to rectify or to correct or to make good on it. That's all I would say at this moment.
I would go with Amy. I mean, if there was any issue with what her findings were, they should have made an effort to be at the meeting one way or another and get in touch with Amy. Here we're just arguing about what you're showing versus what Amy had documented, so I would go with Amy.
I just wanted to make a point. So when Mr. Sullivan contacted the owners of the other property to ask to clean up the property and remove dead material, that was well after the other enforcement order and things that he was given. Should have, even removal of dead and downed wood, especially large trees, like that's disturbance in a no disturb zone. To bring a machine in there to go take things out after he'd already been through stuff with the commission, that shouldn't have happened. It was made clear that that wasn't supposed to be touched. So even his going in to remove dead and down things in a highly protected area was not a good idea.
So, my comment is, I basically agree with Amy. I think, we, as Stan said, we could maybe argue about some of the images, but the fact is that Mr. Sullivan doesn't dispute that he went in there with heavy machinery, and it's very clear that there was a lot of disturbance there, and it's also very clear that Mr. Sullivan should at that point have understood very well that nothing of that sort should have been taking place without permits from the commission. So I think at this point, the question is, what do we do now? I mean, it's clear there's a problem here, it's clear there's a violation here. We can argue around the edges, but I don't think there's any point in it. What do we, I mean, the two things that have to be discussed, right, are fines and remediation. And we didn't get to that last time, right? We didn't have any discussion about that.
No, we wanted to try to set up a meeting. The first meeting, I was asked for a series of I was given provided a series of dates that I could meet. I did not hear from them. The day of one of those meetings, I was asked to meet. At that point, I hadn't heard, so I rescheduled, or I had scheduled other things. And then the second time, and I absolutely understand and sympathize with having a child who had a medical emergency. I'm not saying anything against that. But that was December 5th I was supposed to meet. I didn't hear anything from anybody until December 16th. So at that time, I couldn't, and I honestly could not, when I was contacted this Monday, I did not have time to meet this week before the meeting, so.
So, I mean,
Yeah, excuse me, yeah.
yes, Stan, go ahead.
Just the other point is, there's fines that were due on the 16th that have not been paid either.
No, they weren't due then. It was, I was just letting you know that we had issued, on your November 2nd meeting, you had voted to issue Mr. Sullivan $600 in fines, and that was for his property, for failure to abide by the order of conditions. And as of by the 16th, when I wrote this summary for you, they hadn't been paid. Just, it was an FYI.
Right, so those violations and plans for fixing that are a separate issue at this point.
Can I make a recommendation for you?
Please do.
I would recommend that you issue an enforcement order to have Mr. Sullivan and his team supply a native revegetation plan for 117 and 123 Riverside Drive by February 8th. Gives you another week from my original, so it may be discussed at our February 15th meeting. I would suggest, and I'm happy to facilitate, that that plan be shared with the owner of 117 Riverside Drive, because it is their property. They've essentially have said they just want to see the vegetative cover reestablished, and they're kind of deferring to us and experts essentially on that. They want to kind of see what was there be put back. So aside, they understand that like mature trees can't go back there, but I do stand by. It was 7 trees, fairly recent 7 trees. So fines for each of those trees, a group fine for limbing, even though, you know, I did say that I counted 14 trees that were pruned, but I'm suggesting a $300 fine just for all the limbing, and $300 for ground disturbance, for a shrub layer. This is up to the commission. I am suggesting, which is what you've done in the past, is $300 per tree. So cumulative fines, taking out the suggested fine I had for the dumping of construction debris, would be $2,700 in fines. And a restoration plan due by February 8th to be on our February 15th meeting. That is something, I mean, an enforcement order is something that they can dispute if you choose to. The restoration plan should be, in my mind, a combination of some small native trees, shrubs, and ground layer. And I would be happy, we have time now, would be happy to meet with Tabitha, yourself, Mr. Sullivan, on the site to help you formulate a plan that would hopefully be acceptable to the commission and the client. That would be my recommendation.
So do we have any comments on Amy's recommendation?
Sounds pretty reasonable to me.
I would agree with Amy's recommendation.
Would someone like to make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, what I would like to do, if it's acceptable to you, is make two different motions. And I'd like to make the first motion on the commission issuing an enforcement order to have Mr. Sullivan supply a native revegetation plan for 117 and 123 Riverside Drive, and supply that plan to Amy by February 8th, 2023, so that it may be discussed at our meeting of February 15th, 2023.
Do we have a second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I would like to make a second motion that we also issue fines to Mr. Sullivan in the total amount of $2,700.
I think you should specify.
Okay, and that, breaking that down to, the fine will be for $300 per tree for trees that were cut down, 7 trees at the total amount of $2,100, for $300 for limbing trees, and for $300 for disturbing ground and shrub layer, for a total of $2,700.
I'll second it.
Okay, Stan seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unopposed. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion here? I think we're done for now.
I just have one thing, this, because it wasn't in there, and you weren't aware. When you were making site visits, could you copy me on the emails? Because I didn't even know of the site visit date.
Absolutely.
I suddenly got this email from you saying you were there and no one was there.
I will let you know.
I don't think I could have made it, but,
That's okay.
okay,
No problem.
Yeah.
It was requested by Davenport Farm, so,
right,
but in the future, we will make sure to copy you.
yeah,
Okay?
that's, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Want my photos back?
No, you can have them all.
I'll keep a set for the file.
Okay.
Yeah, at least one set.
All right. Very good.
I'll get them down to her.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Feel free to help yourself to a Christmas cookie.
Okay.
There's Christmas cookies, Brad, I know.
Not yet though, Brad. Not quite there yet.
Every year,
The highlight of the
he
year.
looks for.
You had me when I was standing up.
No, we may not. Because we have two other things. Is it 2, 3? So we
Got a
have
few little minor things.
a few minor things. That is, unless I'm missing something, I think we're on update on ongoing land management tasks, Herring River study and Bell's Neck land management plan revision.
I don't have, I was hoping to have an update for you. I need to get that RFP out to you, and I'm hoping next week I do. So, I'm gonna put that on for January 4th for Herring River.
Okay.
Sorry, it's just
So-
it's been insane.
Yeah.
Bell's Neck, I did send a draft update to you and Amy today.
I forwarded it to everybody.
Yeah, I would not expect people to have a chance to review it, so I think.
If you wanna give highlights, you
You want to
can.
just summarize for us?
Yeah, we can, BSC Group prepared a
Mhm.
plan for us in 2012, and it had a number of recommendations, and so the plan will be updated to include what work has been done since then.
Mhm.
And then we're looking to update it on future management for the site. So what I did was review it to try to bring it up to date, so to speak. I also included the material from when the commission discussed how to manage the cranberry bogs on the property.
Mhm.
And so those decisions that were made are included there. There's a lot to discuss within that. I think there's a lot to discuss in terms of trail management. There's been a fair amount done, but there were some very specific recommendations in the previous plan that I think we should all consider and revisit. I think invasive plants are a big issue that were outlined in the first plan, and the recommendations were to go after them for the most part with chemical treatments. I think we should revisit all that and think about it. And include, there's been manual removals already in the bogs for well, not Phragmites, but mainly Russian olive, I think. That should-
Olive and willow, yeah.
that should be described. And there was also recommendations in the first plan on modifications at the Herring Run parking lot, which Amy managed those modifications to put in fencing. But I think the first plan had further details they wish to implement there. I think we should revisit those, and
Yeah.
make sure we're all comfortable with those changes. So to me, it's a first run-through, and those edits obviously are not binding. We all have to give our input, and then we'll eventually vote on the updated plan. So I'd encourage everybody to dig in and, make your comments felt. And there's lots of issues there that probably even haven't been brought up. Things, the East Reservoir. I'd like to have some discussion on how that's managed. I know there was a former culvert with board slots. We should think about that. We
You
should
wanna
think about
walk
how our property management connects with HCT. So there's a number of things I think that, can use work. I think we should rely on Amy and Melissa for the invasive plant management, because you guys know that stuff. And so I left a lot of that untouched.
FYI, we removed a very small manually removed, so there'll be some regrowth. But I would say maybe 200 square feet that we had a small patch of frag that started in the West Reservoir.
Oh, yeah.
And we, with a couple of volunteers and some shovels and some boots,
Cut it
we
out.
dug out as much as we possibly could. It'll be an ongoing thing, but that's something we did do recently.
Yeah.
Where in the West Reservoir?
Almost right across from the kiosk on Bell's Neck Road. So if you drive down there now, we put up symbolic fencing, because the soil is roughed up. I mean, it's the muck, it's all mucky now because we dug everything out. We made sure we got a permit. Yeah, but we symbolically fenced it to keep people off there because it's a mud hole now. But if you go out there across from the kiosk on Bell's Neck Road, you'll see some symbolic fencing signage in the area that we dug it. But we felt manageable at the size it was. It's probably about a 2-year stand. It was more than just this year because there was some mature shoots, but we hopefully got a lot of it.
Yeah, so, there's plenty to talk about, there's plenty to add. That fishway is aging, and we could have consideration on, future designs to improve it. So I made mention of that. And that could be a full redesign or just fix the things that are degraded. So there's a couple of big issues there.
There was an evaluation done this past year of that structure. I will share with you guys if you haven't seen it.
Was it NRCS or, I didn't know that was happening.
It basically has said it's okay, but it's a time to start thinking about replacement.
Yeah. The concrete weirs could be reformed, and the entrance pool is really it just isn't sufficient
Yeah.
with the tide. So either you fix those two items or you think about replacement, which, would be a big ticket.
Speaking of herring, did any herring get trapped in Long Pond this fall? Couldn't get out because of the low water?
They were delayed.
But they did finally get out?
Right.
'Cause I was up there the other day hunting in that area up there, and I noticed that stream on the west of 124, where it goes around by that house that's
Yeah.
real close. There's half an inch of water, and some places dry.
Yeah.
Is it just because Long Pond is lower right now?
Long Pond was super low.
Yeah.
We truly had drought conditions
Yeah.
this year. Fish could not leave Seymour or Long Pond till probably mid-November.
Yeah.
And they're leaving, Heinz and I got emails yesterday from a fellow that saw thousands leaving Seymour yesterday.
Oh, really?
Super late.
How big are they now? Usually in September, they're fairly small, but they must be about twice that size now, I think.
What happens is the zooplankton just disappears in some
So
point
they
in
don't-
October. So
they
they're
don't
not
grow too
feeding.
much?
They're not feeding anymore, so
Wow.
they're kind of, whatever the size they have is what they have. and
Really?
They need to get out. So this year was really bad. But the interesting thing is that they're seeing lots of juveniles in certain places, so there might have been a good, year class all the same. But, yeah, all that needs to be considered.
Is the entrance to that sluiceway or culvert over there on the east side of 124 in the Long Pond, is that sanded in like it has in the past?
My crew for the Division of Marine Fisheries built a chute there
Extension.
probably 4 years ago.
Uh-huh.
It would extend into the pond and raise it up.
Oh,
so
really?
It wouldn't
Yeah.
entrain wind with it, the wind fetches blows sand in.
Yeah.
And we put that in, and Heinz removed it just a few weeks ago. It seems to have helped, but you're never gonna stop that movement of sand on Cape Cod. And so, the recommendation years ago was to put concrete out there. I didn't really support that, so the chute at least elevates off the bottom and reduces that constant movement of sand.
Yeah.
But you're still gonna have to get a machine in there every few years to remove sand.
Yeah, that's
from it.
always what's done through, I can remember from the 50s on up, they always had a crane or something go out every few years and
Yeah.
dig out the end of it, yeah.
I deal with all the Cape towns. Every town has the same issue someplace because we're all sand.
Oh, yeah,
Sand
yeah,
moves.
yeah.
Can I go back to the management plan? Just a couple things. I perused through it a little bit, and they talked about the southern bogs and the cranberry bogs, about establishing the paths around the bogs and leaving them 8 feet wide. Should we think about apparatuses for fire trucks, for safety vehicles, and make them wider? Because there's a lot of people down there. Somebody gets hurt, heart attack. I mean, how are the fire apparatuses gonna get in there with all the growth that's growing up there now, the pine trees? You can't get a pickup truck around on the northern bog.
Right.
So, if we're gonna utilize this property as more of a public area for them to peruse, that means you're gonna have more problems,
Yeah.
potentially, fire, safety, so we should think about fire roads.
I think the 8 foot was selected somewhat arbitrarily for walkers.
It was basically two passes of a mower that an abutting neighbor used to do. And it was 8 feet it was kind of arbitrary because people didn't want to be walking in the, thick grass, like the thick tall grass because ticks are really bad there. So I said, well, we could do 8 feet wide so that you can walk through without getting,
I'm just saying it should be wider.
But yeah, we could discuss it.
Yeah, I don't see why not. To me, the things I put in there on option 2, the gradual naturalization is what this commission voted on. But the details, there's no reason they can't be revisited. There's no reason we can't improve upon them. So, we should really have a session before too long where we really dig into it. And, we're not gonna all agree on everything, but I think it's time to do it. The old plan is 10 years old now.
Crazy.
And it speaks to updating it, and that's what we're doing. So I think,
And then, if I may, one other thing. So we have complete control, care, and custody of that property? That's not a question. Between
So,
selectmen versus conservation?
well, so there's various parcels that make up the Bell's Neck. The majority, and I can create a map for the next time of who owns which parcel. The selectmen own a piece next to, between the car bridge and the pedestrian bridge. But like right on the river, but not up
On
by the
Bell's Neck,
bogs.
on the
Yeah,
other side.
yeah. But the bogs area is ours, but I'll create a map for you if it's helpful.
Yeah,
I think
that
I
would be-
already have one, cause I had to do it for somebody else.
Well, I just bring that up because I know we went through that 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, and has a lawyer ever got back to us on that situation, the determination?
I put the request in to, I have to ask to use counsel, and my request never came back.
so to me, this commission tackled this in 2009 with legal determination. And to me, it's pretty clear. I mean, the properties are to be managed by on the care and custody of the Conservation Commission. But if you were gonna enter into a lease, then it has to be approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, if you're gonna change the use of the property, right.
Right, and so then you have a partner where both groups need to approve and sign. But, outside of a leasing situation, it's the care and custody of the Conservation Commission. Obviously, we depend on the Conservation Department a lot, but, management, but, that's where the decisions are made. And even with, I don't wanna talk too much about the leasing of other properties.
Yeah.
But, To me, a lot of time was spent on this in 2009, and I thought it was resolved.
Yeah, I think that in the absence of any further legal opinion, that is the guiding document. And unless we hear something different from somebody else that contradicts that, I don't see why we would do anything other than use that as a guiding document.
Well, that's good. Amy, did you pick up any interesting photos on your trail cam up there?
I don't know, because I'm waiting for a new card reader, because the one I have is broken.
Oh.
And I can't look on the camera, so it took 10,000 photos. I can only go through one at a time. So I made it through like
You
400.
took one of me, I know that.
If you're done with Bell's Neck, I have a quick update on something Wayne found and what we did. Wayne alerted me to some dumping of furniture in the Robbins Pond Conservation Area, and was kind enough to grab the evidence that they had left of who they were. There were documents with people's addresses in the furniture, so I went and photographed it. Wayne gave me the contact info, and we did find, there was 2 individuals, and I did fine them $100 a piece, because for dumping, the first offense is $100. So I haven't heard from them. I haven't gotten it back. It's a Dennis address.
You heard from the PD? Because they were notified. I gave them
I didn't hear
I
from
gave
them.
them the names too.
Didn't hear from
You
them.
haven't heard from them, huh?
Nope.
Wonderful.
So, but I did send out a fine of $100 a piece, and we took this, once we did that and documented
Yeah.
everything, we took it out of there.
Yeah.
It was like dressers and an entertainment center. We had a mattress at the Bell's Neck.
Really?
Yeah, in like the parking lot of the Bell's Neck. Evidently, we're gonna see more of that because of what mattresses are made of and how you have to dispose of them now is harder and more expensive, so
Yeah.
you might be seeing more mattresses.
Wow. Good work, guys. Can I ask a question on, the Thompson's Field piece was on the agenda for a while, now it's off. Was there any movement with that interest to revisit that?
We want to,
Yeah.
Mark and I, we really wanna meet, we've been trying to set up a meeting with the animal control officer. We keep missing each other.
Mhm.
So it's not gone, we definitely need to revisit it,
Yep,
but I didn't put it on an agenda just 'cause I don't have an update for you right now.
waiting for the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
It's not forgotten, just.
Oh, good.
no, not forgotten, no.
Yep, good, all right.
Okay, anything more?
Not for me.
We do have 2 sets of minutes.
Let's do them, please.
Back from 2019.
Yeah, there's a couple just random sets that didn't have done.
Back in the days of the marathon meetings. Oh, yes, the emergency repair at Witchmere Harbor. That was fun.
So, we do November 6th first?
Let's do November 6th first, yes. Any comments? People need more time?
I'm just about done with no comments.
I have no comments.
I wasn't there, so I'm going to
Actually, I
abstain.
wasn't there either.
It doesn't matter, so we need to approve minutes, we need to have people, basically read it for. It was that long ago.
Well, that was an early one, 10:30. I have no comments on that.
We have a motion.
I motion that we approve the minutes for November 6, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No opposed? Okay, how about November 20th?
I wasn't there either.
Oh, that was an earlier one, 9:14.
Ah,
Almost nothing happened, in other words. Yeah, I have no comments.
Good job, Melissa.
Yeah, no, these
Yeah,
are good, these
really.
are good minutes. I had no comments on this one either.
Okay, I'm gonna move that we approve the minutes of
November
16th
20th.
Or 20th.
No. November 20th, 2019.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? Okay. All right.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
December 21, 2022, the last one of this year.